Hey guys, it's Summer Rayne from Homestead, Brooklyn, and I'm here in Oyster Bay, Long Island at the Planting Fields Arboretum. This is one of the most exquisite parks here in New York, and we are getting a behind-the-scenes tour at both their conservatories and the Arboretum. So welcome to this week's episode of Plant One on Me, Field Trip Edition.
My name is Vincent Oni. I'm the director of Planting Fields Arboretum State Historic Park.
And how long have you been working here?
I've been here 26 and a half years.
Wow, and how did you first come upon Planting Fields?
I first came here as a student.
Oh wow.
I graduated from SUNY Farmingdale in Farmingdale, New York, and came here as a student and then applied for an internship here. And I became an intern and then worked my way through the ranks.
That's phenomenal. So what was your first position after an intern here?
After internship, I became the curatorial assistant, curatorial intern, and then the curator of plant collections, and then eventually the assistant director and then director.
Well, when I first came here, I was actually blown away by how beautiful the Planting Fields is, and it has a rich history, and I'm hoping you could share a little bit more about its history.
Sure. It really is a very special place. This is the former Coe estate, so this was owned by Mr. William Robertson Coe. And this is part of the Great Gatsby era, so it would have been in the Roaring 20s when Mr. Coe and his family were here. And this is one of only several residences that they had. So they were only here really in the spring and early summer, and then they were traveling to other parts of the world or the country at various times of the year. So Mr. Coe hired very prominent architects and landscape architects of the day. Most prominently, the Olmsted brothers, who also designed many public spaces in New York and surrounding areas.
I think like Central Park. I think the Biltmore Estate, which is in Carolina.
Right, so that would have been Frederick Law Olmsted, who was the father of the Olmsted brothers.
Fantastic. So I guess it runs in the family then.
Runs in the family, exactly.
So he basically brought them in. He landscaped this whole place. Where the conservatory that we're standing in now, is that one of the original conservatories here?
Yes, this was called the main greenhouse, and this would have been started in 1914, and there were additions made later on. So the last additions were 1929. So throughout that period, there were additions made to the greenhouses, and there were wings dedicated to certain plant collections. So we have a wing for the Begonia collection, the orchid collection, cacti and succulents. And this beautiful conservatory is our main display conservatory.
I guess I'm curious now how maintenance is of it, because it's not a new greenhouse, it's an old greenhouse. There's probably new state-of-the-art greenhouses. So talk to me about some of the maintenance that is involved with doing something in a more like historic building or historic site.
Right, well, first of all, this is the largest public greenhouse on Long Island.
Wow.
Which we're very proud of. The greenhouse was renovated in the early 90s. Our staff is very dedicated. We have staff that work here and both part-time and full-time staff and volunteers, and they maintain this beautiful facility. So all the growing of the plants, all the displays that go in, they do all of that. So we do have a very dedicated staff that work very tirelessly at keeping this place looking as good as it does.
One of the things that I asked your colleague Michael is, how do you then determine what type of plants get planted outside when he's doing some of the stuff with the Arboretum, but how do you determine what plants get planted on the inside here?
Well, we have a manager, Paul, and his assistant, Margaret, who make those decisions on what gets planted in here and how it gets planted and how it gets displayed. Paul has been here for quite a long time, and he knows this facility very, very well. And they make the management decisions on the ground. They hit the ground running, basically, and make those decisions for the Arboretum. And of course, they make terrific displays and terrific decisions on how to maintain the plant collections. Some of our plant collections are permanent. They're in the ground and they're growing in the ground. And some of our collections are changeable. They're disposable. And so we have a combination of that. The greenhouse displays in this greenhouse are changed about 5 times a year. So at Christmas time, during the holidays, you'll see a poinsettia display. When it's Easter, you'll see Easter lilies. When it's the summer months, like it is now coming up, we'll have foliage plants. So it changes about 4 or 5 times a year.
So as you're changing, I'd imagine that's one way to attract some of the surrounding locals or people from out of state or whatnot. But what are some of the other events and services that you offer in order to get people through the doors here?
Well, we have many events, many public events, many events for families. We have an organization called the Planting Fields Foundation, which runs a lot of those events. We have summer concerts, we have fall festivals, we have summer festivals, we have a bunch of different things that happen throughout the year. And it's really geared towards bringing families in to experience planting fields. And so that happens all year. We're only closed Christmas Day, so we're open every other day of the year. And people come here for many reasons. They come for the greenhouses, they come for the grounds, they come for the trails, they come for the events. So it's really a place for everyone. There's something for everyone.
Now, have you ever expanded on the acreage here, or is the amount of acreage that was, I would imagine, donated from the Coe family, and you're just maintaining that plot of land, or have you expanded since that time?
Planting Fields is 409 acres. It was a little less than that when Mr. Coe bought the property, but he acquired more land over time, which became 409 acres. It hasn't changed since. This property is owned by New York State Parks, the New York State Office of Parks, Recreation, and Historic Preservation, to be exact. And Parks maintains this property and many other beautiful properties on Long Island throughout the state. And we preserve it as best we can. It's interpreted and preserved. And so the park is still 409 acres as it was back in the 40s.
Well, this is phenomenal. Well, I think without further ado, I'd love to, if you could give us a little bit of tour of at least the greenhouses here, because we'll be at least out of the rain.
That's great.
Awesome, thank you. So this is your main greenhouse here.
Right, this is called the Hibiscus House, which originally when the Coes were here, they grew hibiscus in here. It was one of Mr. Coe's favorite plants. It's a little evolved since then, of course, many foliage plants, but has a lot of economic plants, so a lot of plants that are edible, bananas and coffee and chocolate and things like that. So it's got a lot of permanent collections that are original, and then a lot of displays that are changed out about 4 or 5 times a year.
That's amazing. I see a lot of crotons, some
Yep.
dracaenas, some caladiums.
Yeah, so the caladiums would be the summer display. We love caladiums. Caladiums do very well here in the greenhouse, and you'll see them a lot in outdoor gardens in Florida and places like that. But caladiums are very good for the summer because they can take the heat. And so there's a wide variety of caladiums, a lot of ferns.
This maidenhair is beautiful.
Yeah, isn't that beautiful?
Yeah.
Yep. And but yes, a lot of different types of crotons and dracaenas and things like that in here.
So this is like one of the newer cultivars, isn't it, of an alocasia?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. And so they do very well. We try to do big, bold displays so that we can get that wow factor.
Well, this is, I mean, you walk into here and you're just like, ah. And then I see you have a giant Ficus lyrata over here. That seems like one of the, is that more of your permanent displays
Those would be
here?
more permanent. We have tangerines and oranges and lemons and things like that that are also permanent. And then very large ferns that are pretty much permanent. So yes.
When I look at these places and I look at the these permanent exhibits, you always then wonder, like, oh, if that one's right up against the light, do you ever have to kind of trim it back? Or
Greenhouse staff come in here fairly regularly, and at least a couple times a year there'll be some major pruning done to keep things in check, basically. But yes, the vines have to be pruned, the plants have to be pruned. A lot of them are pressing against the glass, so we do that. They do that quite often. So maintenance in here is regular, as you know, with greenhouses. House plants need a lot of care, and we do that regularly.
Do you know what this beautiful evergreen tree is?
That is Norfolk Island
that
pine.
is a Norfolk
Right,
pine.
which are used a lot around the
Yeah.
holidays for decorating and stuff. Yep, that's been there a long time.
Wow.
Yep, and
That's what it's supposed to look like when you don't kill it after you buy it.
well, this greenhouse is a perfect condition for a lot
Yeah.
of these plants. So, they definitely thrive in here, most of them.
Well, I think when people think of pine trees, they think of like, well, you need a cold season in Northeast, but that one is a more tropical variety
Tropical
of pine.
variety, right.
Yeah.
And the thing is, we have 2 sets of greenhouses. We have this greenhouse, which is all tropical, and then we have a cooler greenhouse, which is for camellias, which are winter blooming shrubs. So they're 2 different environments.
We're past the blooming season, unfortunately, for the camellias, but I've heard your camellia house is second to none.
It's
really
legendary, yes,
beautiful.
it is.
Yeah.
Yep.
Should we go and see some of the other parts of?
Yep.
Yeah.
So this is our Begonia house, our Begonia collection. And they're not your typical begonias. A lot of these are species begonias. A lot of these are very unusual from other countries. They aren't just wax begonias and the common begonias you see in gardens. So some are in hanging baskets and some are in pots, and all have these very interesting leaves, mostly foliage. I mean, they do flower and they have interesting flowers, but they also have very interesting foliage. And so you can kind of see some of the different ones. I mean, look at this one here, for instance.
I know, that's so phenomenal. And it looks like you have a lot of the cane begonias around too, and this one's stunning.
And we add to them as we need to as new ones become available.
Yeah.
But this is a very old collection. This collection has been here for quite a few decades.
And these, you said, are all species, or are there some cultivars
There are
as well?
cultivars too, hybrids too, but a lot of species, yeah.
And does any of your staff ever try to hybridize some of them on your own, or is this more of like...
We don't hybridize here, but we certainly keep our eyes out for new things and always try to incorporate new things into the collection that have been hybridized or brought or introduced.
One of the amazing things that we went to go see was at Fort Worth. They just started a beautiful begonia exhibit. It's become one of the top. So I wonder, would you ever then start to trade in between botanic gardens? Is that something that's done?
That's happened fairly regularly. Horticulturists love to trade, and so we constantly will give to another group, or they'll give to us, or they'll donate things. So yes, horticulturists are constantly trading.
Can we see some of the other begonias, just to kind of...
So you'll see some will have silver foliage, some will have dark foliage. We have labels and everything so people can learn about them.
And it's such a clean display here, because I guess everything's potted in containers.
Yes. And of course, for disease and insects, we try to keep everything clean.
That makes total sense. Gosh, look at this one right here.
Isn't that interesting?
It's phenomenal. And then this back room too? Or were you going to show us this one?
Yeah, this is a fairly new one. Isn't that nice with that pink foliage?
Pink minx. That is beautiful.
Yeah. So this is one of many wings of the greenhouses. So now we'll be heading into the houseplant house, and a lot of people have interesting, stories about houseplants and how they take care of their houseplants. And so we have a nice display of houseplants too that you can see.
Hey guys, so I hope you really enjoyed that tour. I mean, I have to thank Mike and Vinny for actually taking us around and seeing some of those beautiful plants and sharing in the history of the planting fields. So if you like these episodes, then don't forget to subscribe to the channel. And if you want to be notified when the next episode hits, then you hit the little alarm button nearby. And of course, if you'd like to follow along on my journey, you could do so on my blog at homesteadbrooklyn.com and on Instagram at homesteadbrooklyn. See you next week.